Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Fuse News, coming to you live on Facebook and on YouTube. Last month, the Students' Union announced that they have made progress on the issue of a student pledge. After what seems like a long time, the SU announced that the 5-point pledge had not been easy to reach, given how complex the university is and the need to equitably satisfy all of our undergraduate and postgraduate students across different faculties and levels of study. This news was followed up by the SU's statement on the university's wildly unpopular decision to not continue last year's no disadvantage policy that was implemented at the start of the pandemic. It reiterated that the students were fair to feel frustrated at the Russell Group's policy and they will continue to work for student rights. While the student community seems to be extremely disappointed by these developments, one cannot say that this was unexpected. Chloe interviewed a student about that pledge.
So I'm here with Bego today, a student from the University of Manchester, just to get her thoughts on the university's assessment pledge, which went live on the 19th of January. Hi Bego, how are you doing?
I'm good, yeah. I'm good, thank you.
Good to hear. So how do you feel about this new 5-pronged assessment pledge? Do you feel like it offers sufficient support?
No, definitely not. First of all, the extensions, they come really late. We've been in lockdown or with a pandemic since almost a year, so they should have had like time to actually put something more thoughtful in place. And also the mitigating circumstances thing, that is completely unfair. That's, you don't need to like provide evidence. I would like to see the stats of like how many people applied before and after that was released, because I feel like so many people are going to take advantage of that.
Just for the context of our viewers, could you just let us know a little bit about what your post on Manchester Students Group kind of entailed?
Yeah, so I usually never post, but I was so angry, especially because after this got released, especially in some group chats I'm in, they just mentioned jokes about, or how are they going to take advantage of this, or faking that a relative has passed away, etc. Two of my best friends, one of them including one of the girls I live with, they're grieving at the moment. The parents, their fathers have passed away like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. We got completely triggered. You don't expect that level of like dark humor, which is not funny. It was just so disrespectful. I made that post saying how this really devalues the real struggles. So I was just basically explaining what the uni has done with the assessment pledge of like removing the evidence, and how this is going to actually devalue the real problem.
I feel like a lot of students resonated with that. How did you feel like it was received on the post? Did you get any comments?
Yeah, people really agreed with me. I wasn't expecting it.
Well done for you using your voice. Like, we definitely need way more of this. And thank you so much for talking to me today as well. It's been really great.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
A great interview there by Chloe. Now, there have been reports that police have been carrying out random COVID checks on student halls. George has more on this story.
It has been reported by students and Greater Manchester Police that several officers entered student halls on Fallowfield Owens Park campus last weekend. The arrival of others, being called raids by many, were reportedly put in place in cooperation with the university and have left students fearing for their own safety. Students have said that police entered the accommodation blocks at around 11 p.m. last Friday and as late as 2 a.m. on Sunday. According to Greater Manchester Police, they reportedly gave out £8 £800 fines to students who were seen to have breached coronavirus restrictions and mixing with those outside of their designated households. However, many have questioned whether these fines should have been handed out, as some accommodation blocks in Owens Park make it impossible not to mix with more than 15 people, as flats are linked and more than that amount can share a common room. These common rooms were originally locked at the beginning of the year, but have since been reopened only after students demanded it. Many students were reported to be weeping and said that the police would simply not listen to them when they tried to explain the situation. Sharad has the latest update on the surge testing, which will begin next week in Manchester in response to 4 confirmed cases of the Kent variant of coronavirus.
Thanks, Josh. Mass testing is underway in Manchester after mutations in the Kent variation of COVID-19 were detected. The mutation, known as E484K, was first seen in the South Africa variant and may result in vaccines being less effective. The mutation makes it harder for antibodies to latch onto the virus. Data from a new small-scale study has shown that the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is only 10% effective against COVID-19 cases where the E484K mutation was present. As a result, the South African government has temporarily suspended usage of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. The E484K mutation has also been detected in Brazil, Canada, Argentina, and the United States. So far, there have been 4 cases of the E484K mutation of the Kent variation in Manchester. To combat the spread of the mutation, the local government plans to test at least 10,000 people in affected areas and has urged everyone to get tested. The biggest concern is that people who are fully vaccinated may still get infected by the Kent variation with the E484K mutation. The Kent variation is believed to be up to 70% more transmissible and is assumed to be the dominant strain of COVID-19 in the UK. Frankie has the latest on the upcoming Nancy Out referendum.
Thank you. Nancy Rothwell, who is the Vice-Chancellor at the University of Manchester, is facing referendum of no confidence next month. Voting will be taking place between the 8th and 11th of March and will be open to all students and staff members, with the results being announced on the 12th of March. Campaigners from a group called Nancy Out say this vote will force the SU to push for resignations. They encourage students and staff to vote yes because of the negative high-profile criticisms that Rothwell is facing in the media. This is from Fencegates. An incident of racial profiling.
This is your card. Give us your card. I record this.
I'm recording it.
I'm a University of Manchester
I'm recording it.
They're trying to snatch my card from me.
I said that I had written to the student that was involved in a serious incident on the 13th of November. I found out today that, in fact, that was not included in correspondence to him.
And the university advised to treat lockdown as a retreat in response to the ever-pressing mental health crises amongst students. Now over to Pippa.
Thanks for that, Frankie. So, for many students, this year has not been the university experience which we were expecting. The majority of us organised our accommodation for the 2020 to 21 academic year long before the pandemic had reached its height in the UK. The promise of a blended learning experience has also yet to be implemented for the majority of students due to the ongoing fight against COVID. This has resulted in a number of students paying for student accommodation in houses which they are not currently living in, and in some cases haven't even set foot in. Little support has been given by the government for students paying significant amounts of money to private landlords for properties they are not occupying. In some cases, this has resulted in students having to drop out of uni due to inability to afford the accommodation when work has been furloughed and redundancies have been made. This has left many wondering what the government is doing to support students and why a student furlough scheme has not been introduced. I spoke with third year student Libby Jackson about her experience of renting this academic year. So I'm here today with Libby Jackson, who is a third year student at the University of Manchester, to talk about the rent situation which is ongoing for students at the university who are paying large amounts of money for accommodation which they're not living in. So Libby, would you be happy to talk about your experience of renting this year?
So I signed for a house in second year and it was going to be around like £500 a month. Which is fairly standard. It was what my second year house was priced at. And then obviously COVID happened and I am still paying £500 a month that my student loan doesn't even cover. So I had to get a job on the side of my third year, which obviously is very stressful, to pay for a house that I've never once set foot in. So definitely now in second semester, I'm at the place where I have a lot to do for my dissertation and then all of my other assessments. And so had I perhaps had the time in first semester, then I would have been okay. But in terms of the financial burden on us as a family, I think most students would be in the same position. Obviously, finance is a really tough subject at the moment, and it probably will only get worse for a little while. And so, you know, paying £500 a month for a house that I've never stepped foot in, when I could be using that money for other things, or I mean, in an ideal world, I'd be allowed to go to that accommodation that I'm paying for, but the government has told me not to go. So I think it's frustrating that government are furloughing people in businesses that are private, but refusing to do the same thing essentially for students who go to a private university. But I do want to say it's not like a let's blame the landlord situation, because I do understand that it is their income, but it's a let's blame the government thing, because why aren't they giving landlords the money that they need, like they're giving furlough to all of these other employees?
Good morning. Now at Fuse News, it's time for the top global headlines of the week. So, US President Joe Biden has revoked the national emergency order used to fund Donald Trump's border wall. In a letter to Congress on Thursday, Mr. Biden wrote that the order was unwarranted and said that no further tax dollar will be spent on the wall. When Mr. Trump left office, about $25 billion had been spent on the project. Building a border wall was a signature pledge of Mr. Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Moving ahead, India and China are to pull back troops from the part of disputed territory in the Himalayas in what's seen as a breakthrough following a deadly clash in June 2020. India's defense minister said the move to withdraw troops in Ladakh was the result of sustained talks between the nuclear-armed neighbors. His remark came a day after a similar announcement from China. Tensions have been high since the clash that left 20 Indian soldiers dead and a number of reported Chinese fatalities. Moving to next, a devastating flash flood in India's northern state of Uttarakhand killed at least 32 people and trapped workers in underground tunnels. Rescue efforts are still continuing, with more than 150 people missing. 12 workers were pulled out from a tunnel after being trapped in the freezing dark. Hundreds of troops, paramilitaries, and military helicopters have been sent to the region to help with rescue efforts. Team of scientists investigating the incident believe a piece of Himalayan glacier did fall into the water and trigger the huge flood in Uttarakhand state. There are some 10,000 glaciers in the Indian Himalayas, and Uttarakhand itself has up to 1495 glaciers, and many are receding due to the warming climate. Moving further, after the military coup in Myanmar, fresh mass protests are taking place. On Friday, pattern of daily rallies continued demanding the release of detained elected leaders, including Aung San Suu Kyi. There were reports of rubber bullets fired by police on protesters. In his TV address to the nation on Thursday, General Leung said those protesting had been incited and again asked them to work for the country without focusing on the emotion. Protests have also continued in the biggest city, Yangon, and the capital, Naypyidaw. The US has been among those demanding a return to democracy and the release of civilian leaders. It has targeted a number of officials and companies with sanctions. Moving ahead, China has banned BBC World News from broadcasting in the country. China has criticized the BBC for its reporting on coronavirus and the persecution of ethnic minority Uyghurs. China took this step after the British media regulator Ofcom revoked China's state broadcaster CGTN's license to broadcast in the UK. Ofcom's decision earlier this month came after it found that CGTN's license was wrongfully held by Star China Media Limited. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab called the move an unacceptable curtailing of media freedom. And a new booking system for England's hotel quarantine scheme was taken offline minutes after it launched. Under this latest scheme, the requirement to quarantine in a hotel applies to British and Irish citizens and UK residents arriving in England from 33 red-listed countries from Monday, and it will cost around £1,750 for an individual booking. The so-called red list countries, including Portugal, Brazil, and South Africa, are deemed high risk due to emerging new virus variants. So that's all from us today at Fuse News at the University of Manchester this week. And on behalf of the whole team of Fuse TV, I would like to wish everyone a very happy Lunar New Year and have a wonderful weekend. Tune in next Friday for our weekly news update. Thanks.